Halili has the big story.
President Duterte has ordered the temporary suspension of all flights from the United Kingdom starting 12:01 in the morning of December 24 until December 30 this year. This after a new strain of COVID-19, which is believed to be more infectious, emerged in the United Kingdom. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says movements of passengers will be restricted following the suspension.
All passengers who have been in the UK within 14 days immediately preceding arrival to the Philippines, including those merely in transit, are also temporarily restricted from entering the country for the same period.
Meanwhile, passengers who are already in transit from the UK, as well as those who have been to the country within 14 days and will arrive before the order takes effect, will be allowed to enter. However, they will have to undergo stricter quarantine and testing protocols.
Such protocols include observation of an absolute 14-day quarantine period in the athletes' village in New Clark City, notwithstanding a negative RT-PCR test result.
Despite the inevitable impact of the temporary suspension of UK flights to the tourism industry, the Department of Tourism supports the decision. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat says ensuring public health and safety is more important. The Department of Science and Technology, on the other hand, has assured the public that the discovery of the new strain of virus will not affect vaccine production. For its part, the Immigration Bureau says it is continuously monitoring the entry of foreign nationals. The agency is also coordinating with airlines and vessels entering the Philippines to prevent the entry of UK nationals. Flag carrier Philippine Airlines will suspend its flights to and from London until the end of February next year. Those affected by the cancelled flights have the option to rebook, refund, or convert a ticket into a travel voucher. PAL says service fees will be waived. The World Health Organization has called a meeting to draft strategies on how to counter the new variant of coronavirus. These include limiting travel to contain the spread of the virus. For News 5, Maricel Halili, we are One News.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque says it is better to be safe than sorry in implementing travel protocols. Duque notes in a forum that experts from the Philippine Genome Center are also studying the new UK strain and the extent of its damage. He says evidence shows easier transmission of the virus with this new strain. No signs yet on whether the new variant causes severe infection. But while this has yet to be verified by experts, Duque says strict quarantine measures are the way to go to ensure no new strain of SARS-CoV-2 enters the Philippines.
Hindi natin alam o nakakasiguro patungkol sa bagong strain nitong B117 virus from the UK. No? So maigi na yung mas mag-iingat tayo at kumpletuhin yung 14-day quarantine period para at least makakasiguro tayo na hindi ito makakaalpas.
Duque, meanwhile, again denied having mishandled any vaccine acquisition efforts. He says they were merely making sure procurement undergoes the legal processes. The Health Secretary noted that if there were indeed high-level talks on the procurement of Pfizer vaccines, there would have been an official document.
Sinabi mismo ni Ambassador, I'll send this to you, Ambassador Babes Romualdez, sinabi niya, it is okay that we were not able to get Pfizer vaccines after all, no? Because we were not ready to receive them anyway. Ito talaga mag-iingat tayo. We've learned very costly lessons in the past about certain immunization experiences.
A third wave of COVID-19 infections appears to be upon us just as the nation is about to celebrate Christmas. In an interview on 1PH sa Totoo Lang, Father Nicanor Austriaco of the Octa Research Team says they are still unsure about the severity of the upward trend in cases. It's still early in the early stages, he says. He noted, however, that the country still has 10 days to prevent a higher increase next month, which experts say may be similar to what was observed back in July or August. In today's Laging Handa briefing, the team said an increase in cases was seen in the northern portion of Metro Manila as well as in Isabela. Austriaca says the government has tried everything to protect the public from the virus. The Octa Research Team says it is now up to Filipinos to dampen the rise of infections.
As long as hindi pa naman tayo tumatama ng 4,000 kasi 4,000 yung parang critical yung limit ng cases para bumalik tayo sa MECQ. Kasi yun yung nangyari ng August 10. And gusto natin iwasan yung lockdown.
The firecrackers industry in Bulacan is appealing with Metro Manila mayors to just impose a regulation instead of an outright ban on their products. But with a moratorium already in place, what might this mean for the country's firecrackers capital? JC Cosico tells us.
Annie of Bocabe, Bulacan sells firecrackers for a living. In the days leading to Christmas and New Year, she says their products easily sell out as customers flock to their shop. But with just a week away before New Year's Eve, their inventory remains plenty, while buyers are nowhere to be seen.
Siguro, dahil sa pandemic, maraming nawalan ng trabaho, and then syempre uunahin pa ba nila ang paputok. Yun ang panalangin namin na sana'y makabawi kami.
Okay.
Oo, para kami masaya.
Prices of pailaws like luces and fountains had to be jacked up due to a shortage in chemical ingredients. Some shops, meanwhile, have yet to reopen due to the pandemic's blowback. Those currently operating have set up plastic barriers, with vendors clad in protective gear. But all these efforts may have been for naught. Metro Manila, which accounts for about half of Bocawe's sales, had already imposed a firecracker ban. In fact, President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday said he is eyeing a nationwide ban. For Josefina, who hails from a generation of firecracker sellers, a regulation would suffice.
Regulate yung kung ano yung ayaw nila na paputok, hindi namin ititinda yun. Kung ano yung pwede, yun ang ibebenta namin. Huwag lang kaming matigil sa hanap buhay na to.
Pyrotechnics are not covered by the Metro Manila ban, but must first be approved by LGUs. In any case, firecracker sellers say the embargo only worsened their ever-piling losses.
Ang bulk ng population natin nandyan. So, baka mahigit 50% ay nanggagaling sa Metro Manila.
The Philippine National Police welcomed Metro Manila's moratorium on firecrackers.
It's a good and positive reaction coming from the local mayors as regards the protection of our people from possible danger with regard to the use of firecrackers. And good enough dahil ang pronouncement naman ng Presidente.
PNP spokesman Eldon Brandi Usana says they will set up checkpoints across the metro and confiscate paraphernalia. Bulacan Governor Daniel Fernando is unhappy with the possible nationwide ban, but vows to keep an eye on the sale of illegal firecrackers.
May mga ganitong bago na lakas ito. Ito talaga patay ang COVID dito. Ano po? So, ito bawal talaga to. Bawal po ito. Talagang sumasabog po ito. Wala kaming ibebentang bawal dito.
For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns, the Social Welfare Department is calling on netizens to stop bullying online the daughter of Tarlac shooting suspect Jonel Nuezca. And later, we will take a look at the search and rescue operations in an open-pit mine operation in Cebu after a landslide left 6 miners missing. The details when we come back. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. Minors who witnessed the brutal shooting in Tarlac have already undergone psychosocial counseling, including Jonel Nuezca's daughter. Security details have been deployed in the area, including the suspect's residence, to ensure the safety of his family. Justin Punsalang with the details.
The Rufino Gregorio family is seen wearing white ribbons around their heads on the second day of the wake of slain Sonia and Anton. For them, the incarceration of police-turned-murderer Senior Master Sergeant Jonel Nuezca does not automatically guarantee justice. Earlier today, officials from the Social Welfare Department fetched the 12 minors who witnessed the killing in Paniki, Tarlac. They underwent psychosocial intervention, the same process Nuezca's daughter went through on Tuesday to address their trauma.
Yung goal po ng critical incident stress debriefing is yung ma-recall po at mabalikan po yung mga pangyayari at magkaroon sila ng realization sa mga nangyari po.
Bakit kailangan maibalik?
Para event po yung mga nararamdaman nila.
On Tuesday night, PNP Chief Debold Sinas visited the wake of Sonia and Anton and talked to the bereaved family. Sinas assured the family of the victims that they have a strong case against Nuezca and that they are safe.
Ang pulis hindi po gagalaw sa inyo. Okay, yun ang kaya po. Pero ingat pa rin tayo. Walang perfectong protection. So, ingat din lang.
Security details have been deployed in the compound of the victims as well as within the residence of the suspect.
Yung pamilya din ng suspect, wala rin naman kinalaman yun, di ba? So, kailangan i-secure din. Baka mamaya mayroon din mga walang gagawing mabuti, ay mahirap din.
For News 5, Justine Punsalang. We are One News.
Some netizens are worried that double murder suspect Jonel Nuezca could take a beating from his co-inmates, but the police officer says he's doing just fine in prison. On Tuesday, a video of inmates singing the K-pop song I Don't Care trended on social media following Nuezca's brutal killing of a mother and son in Tarlac. Netizens branded this as prisoner's welcome song for Nuezca, as it was what Sonia Gregorio sang moments before she was killed by the officer. However, Nuezca says he has experienced no harm in prison so far.
Binugbog ka ng mga kasamahan mo raw.
Nuezca also faced an enraged Regional Office 3 Director Val De Leon, who told the suspect that he ruined the image of the PNP. De Leon assures Nuezca that the police will still protect his family despite the incident.
Hira mo na ng PNP. Yan ang pagsisihan mo. Wala ka ng kakampi sa ginawa mo.
Meanwhile, Tarlac's Municipal and Social Welfare Department is confirming that Nuezca's daughter, who was present during the fatal shooting, is showing signs of depressive behavior and is blaming herself for the incident. Speaking with One News sa Totoo Lang, Social Welfare Undersecretary Irene Domlao called on the public to stop bullying the 13-year-old girl on social media.
Sinamahan na ng Field Office 3 itong bata kasama yung kanyang nanay doon sa mga medical experts ni sa Tarlac para nga po matulungan because somehow may mga manifestations of trauma. And we would actually like to point out na hindi nakakatulong yung pagbabash, yung pag-incite ng further judgment o paghuhusga sa social media.
And these are the other big stories today. The number of journalists killed as a result of their work jumped threefold this year. That's according to New York-based media watchdog Committee to Protect Journalists. The report shows that at least 30 journalists were murdered this year. That compares to just 10 last year. The Philippines, alongside Mexico and Afghanistan, were considered the deadliest countries for reporters. CPJ says 3 Filipino journalists were killed in retaliation for their work. These are Rex Cornelio Pepino from a local radio station in Dumaguete, Robert Bercasio, a radio and online commentator in Sorsogon, and Virgilio Maganes, a radio commentator and columnist in Pangasinan. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic and the spate of calamities in the country, 91%, that's 9 in 10 Filipinos, remain hopeful for next year. The latest Pulse Asia survey shows that only 1% of adults will enter 2021 without hope. 8% are ambivalent. Pulse Asia says these figures are essentially the same as those recorded in December last year. The same survey also finds that for half of Filipinos, or around 55%, Christmas this year will be the same for their families as in the past year. 2 in every 5 Filipinos, meanwhile, see a poorer holiday celebration. Only 1 in 10 looks forward to a more prosperous Christmas. Tropical Depression Vicky's damage to infrastructure has reached around 122 million pesos. Losses in the agriculture sector has amounted to 111 million pesos. Vicky claimed 8 lives with 2 injured. Another one is still missing. More than 31,000 families, that's comprising at least 130,000 individuals, are coping in Vicky's aftermath. Of these figures, 300 families with around 1,200 individuals are expected to spend the holidays in evacuation centers. Foreign nationals working in the country's pogo sector have started packing their bags as the industry faces heavy hits from the pandemic. But as Camille Samonte finds in this report, unsettled tax obligations also played a part in the exodus. Let's watch this.
Around 300 Chinese pogo workers bound for Beijing were spotted at the NAIA Terminal 3 on Tuesday. The scene isn't something new. The Immigration Bureau says a significant number of Chinese nationals have already left due to an exodus of the Philippine offshore gaming operators, or POGOs. Based on immigration data, over 188,000 Chinese nationals arrived in the country from January to September this year. However, almost 300,000 mainlanders departed during the same period.
Mainly because this is an effect of the pandemic, marami po mga industriya sa Pilipinas na nagsasara na. And marami po dito sa mga Chinese nationals that used to be in the country, working in the country, have already left or are planning to leave the country.
The agency says the exodus of foreign nationals in the country may continue until 2021 due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. The Philippine Gaming and Amusement Corporation, or PAGCOR, has confirmed that 12 POGOs already left the country. A PAGCOR official says contraction in the POGO industry was largely due to new taxes imposed by the government and the adverse impact of COVID-19 pandemic.
Hindi yan kasama sa kanilang business projections. That's why their business projection for this year became unstable. Plus the fact that they had, of course, business losses, understandably, because of the pandemic. So the combination of these issues, some were led to have their license canceled.
Of the 61 registered POGOs in the country, only 35 are currently operating at a limited 30% capacity. This is after some operators failed to settle their taxes with the Bureau of Internal Revenue. PAGCOR says this affected their 4.8 billion peso target revenue for this year. They have already recorded a 300 million peso deficit following the shutdown of 12 POGOs. PAGCOR adds that real estate companies and other businesses catering to POGOs will also see slower revenue inflows.
There would be an effect, of course, dun sa real estate, sa demand for office and commercial spaces, since magko-close na yung mga offices. There would also be an effect on logistical services, like yung mga laundry shops, transport, telco, restaurants, yung mga nagpo-provide ng food and other necessities nila.
The Finance Department earlier said that while POGO firms are leaving the country, their tax duties and obligations must be settled first. So far, the BIR has yet to release data on the number of POGO companies and service providers that have secured tax clearance to resume operations. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
Let's pause for a quick break. When we come back, Antarctica has not been spared. 36 people in the world's last frontier got infected with COVID-19. And opening day of the NBA sees the return of Kevin Durant, who stunned his former team with a grand output. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. 4 have been confirmed dead while 6 remain missing following a landslide at a mining pit in Toledo, Cebu. To give us details on the ground, we have Jenny Dongon reporting live. Jenny, how's the search going?
Robbie, the search and retrieval operations here have been temporarily suspended. Authorities say they have to consider the safety of rescuers because the condition of the ground remains unstable. As seen in this cell phone video, a strong force pushed this huge mass of earth downslope. Then came a panicking group of men who were later confirmed to be miners, trying to find refuge. This video was taken at an open pit mining site in Toledo City, Cebu, owned by Carmen Copper Corporation. One of the miners in the video is Rhea May's husband, John Paul. John Paul remains missing to this day, and his family fears he could have been buried alive. Rhea May recalls how her husband had told her about a strange movement at the upper area of the mining site just hours before the landslide. But she says the management failed to dismiss its workers despite an earlier warning.
Dapat nung mga oras na yun, dapat pinalis na nila yung mga asawa. Kung gusto talaga nila na masave yung mga asawa namin. Pero nung time na yun, imbis na tapos na sana yung trabaho nila, no, diri sa may babaw, pinabalik pa sila sa, kasi may oras pa daw, pinabalik pa sila dun sa ubo sa baba, kasi ipa-connect yung hose.
As she tries to keep the faith that her husband may have survived the landslide, Rhea May couldn't help but worry, especially as search operations have been temporarily suspended. Rhea May says if she were allowed to do the digging on her own, she would without hesitation. She just wants to bring her husband home to their children on Christmas Day.
Gusto kong ako yung lumangoy, ma'am, kahit di ako marunong. Gusto kong kakain yung tubig para makita ko yung asawa ko. Gusto kong isama din sila para baka kasi kung kami ang pumunta mga asawa doon, lumitaw lang sila bigla.
Carmen Copper Corporation blames the incessant rains the past few months as well as the downpour from the tropical depression Vicky for the landslide. But according to the initial investigation of the Mines and Geoscience Bureau, a minor fault line called Barot Fault was observed in the area, which might have been contributed to the incident. Barangay Biga Chairman Pedro Sipada claims that he had warned the mining company last month about the big crack found near the open pit site.
Ito namin na sana makuha yung nag-crack ba. Kinuha nila pero yung portion ng patungo ng open pit nila, hindi nila magalaw kasi ang laki. Natakot na talaga kasi 300 meters lang yung distance. Open pit na yan eh. Below sea level kasi yung ang lalom ng open pit nila.
Local officials assure the families of the missing miners that search and retrieval operations will continue once they get the green light from authorities. Toledo Information Officer Yuselia Layan says they are now consulting the city's legal affairs to look into possible negligence on the part of the mining firm, the city's biggest taxpayer.
We are defending Carmen Copper Corporation, but unfortunately that is not true because we wanted to really serve justice for all.
Carmen Copper Corporation passed an independent audit of the Mining Industry Coordinating Council in 2017 and was found compliant to the safety protocols. But city officials say this will not affect the ongoing probe into the incident. Robbie, all mining operations of Carmen Copper Corporation have been suspended while investigation is ongoing. For its part, the miner says they are assessing the situation and will give financial aid to the affected families. Robbie.
Maraming salamat, Jenny. That was Jenny Dongon reporting live from Toledo, Cebu. Now, time for the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Laura Lehman.
Thanks, Robbie. The NBA season is officially back, and the Brooklyn Nets wasted no time in announcing their presence to the league. They dominated the Golden State Warriors 125-99 to win their first game of the season. The Nets poured on the points from the first quarter and never looked back, led by the returning Kevin Durant, who dropped 22 points in just 25 minutes against his former team. Among those who saw action for Brooklyn in the opening tip was 2019 three-point champion Joe Harris. The game caught up with the Nets forward who shared his thoughts on their superstar duo and his role on the team.
Kai and Kevin are just such dynamic talents, elite scorers, where they can facilitate for themselves, but for other guys as well. So, they make the right basketball play, and my job is really to just, add space. And then if guys do leave me, is to knock down shots, so I'm hoping to, sort of pull my guy, occupy space on the weak side or wherever I'm at, allow them room to facilitate. But then if they do, leave or have space, I got to be able to knock down shots when it comes to me.
The Nets will next face the Bolton Celtics Saturday, Manila time. Catch all the NBA action on NBA TV Philippines. And that's it for the latest in the world of sports. Catch us again later at 9:30 p.m. only here on One News and One Sports Plus. I'm Lara Liman, and this has been The Game.
Thanks, Laura. COVID-19 has reached the southernmost continent of the Earth after an outbreak was reported in Antarctica. Chile's military officials are scrambling to clear out and quarantine staff from a remote research station in the region after at least 36 people were confirmed to have been infected. Officials from Chile, which maintains a base in Antarctica, says personnel have been properly isolated and are now being constantly monitored. So far, health authorities have reported no complications among the COVID-19 positive persons. The first cases involved 2 soldiers who got sick in the middle of this month. Records estimate about 1,000 people across 38 stations in Antarctica have navigated the region safely without incident over the past months. And hoping to catch a glimpse of Santa this Christmas, you might have to grab your snorkel. Mr. Claus was spotted taking a plunge and swimming along a coral reef in Florida for a good cause. Spencer Slade, who's been playing scuba diving Santa for years, delivered some holiday cheer at the Pleasure Reef while also raising money for children's charities. The underwater Saint Nick was joined by one of his loyal elves as they posed for photos among schools of fish. The holiday season dive also aims to raise awareness about the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow, 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. 2 days to go before Christmas. Tuloy na tuloy pa rin ang Pasko, kapatid. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.
Tayo'y maging liwanag ng Pasko.